steering is hefty, but builds resistance in a natural, talkative way. Flatten the body through curves. And then that engine. Hey crew, I've got the keys to these two German super SUVs. On my left, we've got the 23 BMW XM, and on my right, we've got the 23 Audi RSQ8. Why compare these two? Well, they both start well into the $100,000 territory. They both make around 600 horsepower, and they both seat 5 in luxurious comfort. Today, we're gonna decide which is best based on exterior and interior styling, and then we're gonna take them out for a drive. We'll start with the Audi RSQ8, which next to the BMW XM looks very conservative with its gloss black grille, 4 chrome Audi rings, RSQ8 badge, little silver painted accent down low, and then these projector LED headlights with LED DRLs and turn signals. Those are above functional corner vents. This paint job is called White Homo Blue Metallic, and on a gray day like today is a very subtle color indeed. The wheels, however, are not. They're 23 inches in a two-tone finish. I think they look awesome, and they're wrapped in Continental Sport Contact 6 summer tires, 295 section front and rear. Within those wheels are truly massive carbon ceramic brakes with these gray painted calipers. Those are an upgrade. There's silver painting for the door mirrors and window trim, plus the roof rails. Stepping back to look at the profile, the RSQ8 is a coupe design SUV, and while I don't typically love this segment, the RSQ8 does it better than just about everyone. At the back, we find LED taillights with a bar that spans the trunk lid and LED turn signals. There are these fake vents here that don't really suit my fancy. RSQ8 badge, silver accent for the lower bumper amidst a gloss black diffuser with 2 large oval exhaust outlets in chrome. Moving to the XM, which has a slightly higher roofline than the RSQ8 and not as much rake to the rear of its roof as the Audi. It does, however, get this gloss black bar that runs underneath the windows, which is an interesting styling decision. At the back are slender LED taillights and turn signals, which are the only real design flourishes on this hatch. It looks almost plain without a BMW logo in the center. They just have stickers in the upper corners of the back glass, and then this XM badge with gold accenting. That's above a gloss black lower bumper with this stacked tailpipe setup, which does look rad. Moving now to the profile. The silhouette of the XM emphasizes the rear bias of this all-wheel drive system, and this XM is sitting on 22-inch wheel designs with a two-tone finish and aerodynamic shape, wrapped in Pirelli P0 tires, 275 section front and 315 at the rear. Within those wheels are 6-piston front brakes, and they are steel brakes, not carbon ceramics. Moving to the front, where there is a stacked headlight setup of LED DRLs and turn signals above projector LED headlights. Those flow into this gloss black fascia with integrated cooling that contrasts an illuminating grille and a Marina Bay Blue metallic paint that is a much brighter blue than the White Homo of the Audi, and it suits the XM, which has this very bold exterior design versus the conservative look of the RSQ8 that I prefer for its cohesive design. It all fits together nicely, whereas the XM is almost disjointed in the front to side to rear views. Which do you guys prefer though? The XM's exterior or the RSQ8? Let me know in the comments, and now we're gonna check out the interior of the Audi. Opening up and looking inside at this black Napa leather interior with a panoramic glass roof, suede wrapped headliner, RS logos on the seat backs, perforated seat centers with quilting and contrast stitching. Rear seat heating here as an option. On the doors we find leather up top, suede inserts, padded leather for your arm, contrast stitching, injection molding down low, an upgraded Bang & Olufsen sound system, and standard matte carbon fiber trim. Stepping in behind my own seat at 6 feet tall, I've got acres of knee room. The seat back is injection molded, not as nice as leather, and the mat pockets are knitted so they're not going to wear as well. The foot pockets are big to slide my feet under. Thigh support is pretty solid, wouldn't mind a little more. And headroom is great. Head clears the roof, and I can recline the seat to lounge even more. So it gets the thumbs up from me. We've got air vents in the middle, a 4-zone climate control system, 2 USB-C ports down there, and a DC outlet. The drive shaft hump isn't mega, so it's easy to slide over, and my head clears the roof here in the middle, so I could have 3 full-size adults in the second row. If you don't have a middle passenger though, an armrest comes down with leather padding and 2 cup holders. Let's check out the front. Before we listen to the door close noise, note that the RSQ8 has a soft close feature that will close the door the rest of the way, so you don't really need to slam them. I'm just doing this to listen to build quality, which is so solid. We've got smart keyless entry for the rear and front doors. The front seats are more heavily bolstered than the rear, with heating, ventilation, and massage, RS floor mats, RS tread plates, aluminum accented foot pedals. The front doors look similar to the back. We add power adjusting and power folding door mirrors, 2-position memory for the driver's seat, and you can pull this tab to pop up the trunk lid, where inside we find a generous 31 cubic feet of space. And to make cargo loading and unloading easier, you've got these air suspension controls to raise or lower the back end. If you want to get those rear seats down, which split 40-20-40, you're going to have to go around, open up the rear doors, pull the tabs, and then the seats do fold almost completely flat. There's a power close and lock feature on the trunk lid. And as we get into the driver's seat, I'll let the door soft close itself. Just get it close enough, and it does the rest. Drivers find a suede wrap steering wheel and gear shift lever with the RS design package, and the rim of the wheel is just perfect for my hands. The paddles in the back of the wheel, though, are very cheap and small. There's a digital instrument cluster that is reconfigurable, head-up display, stitched leather up on the dashboard, lots of this gloss black that is going to collect dust. That's above some nice matte carbon fiber trim, and a split infotainment system set up here. Both of the screens are very quick responding, and they've got haptic feedback so you know your message has been received. There's wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The bottom screen handles climate settings and shortcuts. There's a physical volume knob, more gloss black trim, and a more problematic spot, because here it will easily get scratched up. 2 cup holders. Under the leather top console, which is an adjusting armrest, we find a wireless smartphone charging pad, 2 USB-C ports, and just a tiny little bit of storage. Visibility is quite good, and there's standard blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic. This is a very executive class cabin with rich materials, a clean design to match the exterior, and some sporty bits like the Alcantara wrapping and matte carbon fiber trim. I love those. Let's go contrast this now to the XM's cabin. Opening up and looking inside at this Silverstone and vintage coffee leather interior. No panoramic glass roof, instead there's a geometric pattern that's suede wrapped with ambient lighting. The seat backs are stylized, the quilting extends all the way over here to the sides, there's perforations, rear seat heating is standard, and lumbar pillows. On the doors, 2 tones of that leather mix beautifully, and the leather extends all the way down on the door panels. There are big door pockets, no carbon fiber, no rear sunshades. You do get an upgraded Bowers & Wilkins sound system. Stepping in, behind my own seat at 6 feet tall, I've got lots of knee room, though not quite as much as in the Audi. This part's injection molded. There are USB-C ports on the back of each seat, and instead of netting, you get quilted leather for the mat pockets. There are big foot pockets to slide my feet under, though I can't extend my legs quite as far as in the RSQ8, so the thigh support isn't as great. Headroom is even better though. My head easily clears the roof, and there's built-in recline, so I'm already lounging. It gets the thumbs up from me. There are air vents, there's a 4-zone climate control system, 2 USB-C ports down there and a DC outlet. Like the Audi, the drive shaft hump isn't too big, so it's easy to make my way into the middle seat, where my head once again clears the roof, and there's space on either side for 2 more passengers. And if you don't have a middle passenger, then an armrest comes down with 2 cup holders and leather padding. Let's check out the front. Like the RSQ8, the XM has soft closed doors, but we need to slam them to hear that build quality. It's a very solid thud, not quite as deep though as in the RSQ8, and no smart keyless entry for the rear doors, only for these fronts. The front seats look quite special. You get illuminating XM logos, little winglets for your shoulders, power adjusting side bolsters, heating, ventilation, and massage, aluminum tread plates, and foot pedals. The front doors have a little more of that coffee leather up top, power adjusting and power folding door mirrors, 2-position memory for the front seats. Press that down to deploy the trunk lid. And inside, there's not as much space as the Audi. We have 19 cubic feet of it. This bag, by the way, holds your charging cables. Also worth noting is that the XM doesn't have an air suspension, so you can't raise or lower the rear end to make it easier to load or unload cargo. And if you want to fold down those rear seats, like the Audi, you need to go to the back doors, pull on those levers, and fold the seats down, but they don't go nearly as flat. You do get a power close and lock button on the tailgate. And as I hop into the driver's seat, I'll soft close this door as well. Drivers get a heated leather-wrapped steering wheel. It's more thickly padded than in the RSQ8. There's tricolor stitching on the inside, programmable M buttons here, and these carbon fiber face paddles that are so much cooler than in the RSQ8. There's a single curved glass housing that encompasses both your digital instrument cluster that's reconfigurable and your 14.9-inch touchscreen that's more visually compelling than in the Audi, but it lacks the haptic feedback. It does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. That screen is sitting on a bed of carbon fiber. To the right of that is more of the beautiful leather. Head-up display is here. Almost all of your HVAC controls are found in the infotainment system, leaving just your defrosters here. We've got a physical volume knob and seat controls. Under that is matte carbon fiber trim, so much better than this gloss black being all over the surface. Slide it forward to find a wireless smartphone charging pad, USB-A port, DC outlet, and heated and cooled cup holders as standard. Leather on the gear selector with stitching. We've got a dial to control the infotainment system if you don't want to touch it. Then under the console, which is leather padded, we have deeper storage than in the Audi with a USB-C port. Visibility is not as good as the Audi. That's a thicker blind spot. Thankfully, there's standard blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic. It doesn't feel like there's quite as much space in this cabin as in the RSQ8, but the average quality of materials and visual intrigue is higher. That's going to leave the verdict up to the drive. All right, we're going to kick things off in the RSQ8, so let's fire it up. It's a hearty growl from the twin-turbo V8. Our drive mode is selected here, and we'll begin in auto, which is sort of a do-it-all daily driver mode. To go into reverse, click in and press forward on the gear selector. That brings up a very high-resolution camera system. Got your backup view with trajectory lines, bird's eye view off to the right. You can have a 3D projection that allows you to scan around the exterior. And then we have lots of other camera angles to choose from. I'll show off the wide-angle rear. Very helpful if you're backing out of a space and you've got traffic on either side of you. Down into drive. And we will begin with a turning radius test, as per usual. Bring up the camera system once more. Crank that wheel. Good Lord, that is a great turning radius. The rear wheel steering system pivoting in the opposite direction of the front's just helping us just pivot right around. Now listening for the turn signal sound. Just so gentle. Pleasant as turn signals go. Now for the world famous horn test. Not as gentle, but that's what you want a horn to be. The Powertrain is also not what I would call gentle. Twin-turbocharged 4-liter V8 makes 591 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque. It is routed through an 8-speed automatic gearbox sent to all 4 tires permanently. There's also a 48-volt mild hybrid system baked in there to run some of the accessory functions of the vehicle, including the start-stop system, which I often just want to turn off because the way this one works, it will cut the engine as you're coming up to a stop, which sounds great, but then if the light then goes green and you need to get back on the throttle, the engine kind of shunks itself awake, puts you into gear, and it's just not a pleasant setup. What is pleasant is how the power is delivered. It's so smooth. The 8-speed automatic has imperceptible gear changes. In the auto mode, the throttle response is measured. The ride quality from this adaptive damper setup with air springs is taut, like a performance SUV should be. But it distills the road blemishes. Even on these 23-inch wheels, I'm shocked. Unless there is a very bad blemish in the road, you stay perfectly at ease in these very comfortable chairs. If there is something nasty, like a pothole, then it will shake the chassis a little bit, and you more importantly hear that imperfection. The brake pedal, no problem modulating that, coming up to a smooth stop. There's ample grunt to quickly and easily get up to speed. And as the speeds build, the ride actually gets better. You get the sense that the RSQ8 was designed for a German Autobahn, speeds that US highways will never achieve, because there's even greater ride compliance. The V8 is working at just a murmur, with the benefit of this dual pane acoustic limited glass. The wind noise is kept low. You won't need to raise your voice to have a conversation with passengers in either the front or rear seats. The tire and road noise aren't really an issue. This would be a fantastic daily driver. But what about on the weekends when you're feeling frisky and you find yourself on a good road? Well, for that, there's the RS button, which is a programmable drive mode where you can set things like the engine response, shift timing, and chassis firmness. I've set everything to be aggressive, and from here, I'm just going to put my foot down and see what happens. Oh my gosh. So much happened. It downshifted quickly. The twin-turbo V8 woke up in noise and in power. This thing is a monster. I've already driven it before and I forgot. It is such a beast. The power is incredible. It squats back on its haunches and it unleashes with a fury. The quality of the sound is great, but I don't know if there's enough volume there. But I suppose it kind of matches the demeanor of this vehicle. It's more subdued with the styling outside and in, and so I suppose that the soundtrack should match. But the velocity is, it's not tame at all. This is a very, very fast SUV. And I want to try out manual mode and use these very upsetting, dinky little paddles. Shifts are quick. Lets me go all the way to red line. Oh my gosh. This thing is fierce. Oh, little pops there in the downshift. Now the upshifts aren't so quick that I found myself having to adjust there and pull the paddle a bit earlier than I would have liked to avoid banging off the rev limiter. But it does give you what you want, doesn't it? And when the road gets bendier, your grin just gets bigger. Because while light, the steering is accurate and quick. The carbon ceramics have so much power to stop this 5,500-pound SUV. And the limited slip differential in the rear gets the power down out of corners. Meanwhile, the rear wheel steering system tucks the SUV into corners. The dampeners and active anti-roll bars flatten the body through curves. And then that engine catapults you forward. Okay, now, if you're anything like me, your next question is, okay, so how quick does the RSQ8 get to 60? So for that, our real-world 0 to 60 test, I've got my race box set up here. We're in RS mode. I'll hit the traction button once for sport traction. I then hold my foot hard on the brake, pin the throttle, build up the boost, let go of the brake. Oh my gosh. 3.36 seconds to 60. And that vicious acceleration will take you all the way to a top speed of 190 miles per hour, though the fuel won't last nearly that long. The fuel economy is 13 MPGe in the city, 20 on the highway, and 16 combined. What an impressive vehicle. I mean, the XM is seriously going to have to bring it to beat this, but let's go try it out and see how it does. Now let's fire it up in the XM. Well, that's a big change to start. In the RSQ8, you heard the growl of the V8. In the XM, you heard some futuristic startup chimes because we're starting as an EV. And you can control your plug-in hybrid powertrain by hitting the M hybrid button. You're starting either as a hybrid, letting it work between the energy that's in the battery and the internal combustion motor at its discretion, or starting as an EV for as long as your electric range holds out. Right now it says you've got 37 miles of range, which is impressive given that the EPA rates this vehicle at about 30 miles of range with a full battery. We don't even have that. E-Control will hold on to that charge for a later use, and we will start as an EV. There's also the setup button, which gives you a whole bunch of other options for your drivetrain, chassis, steering, braking, and all-wheel drive system. We'll leave everything in comfort and the all-wheel drive system in full all-wheel drive. Your regen braking has 2 different levels. We'll put it in the lower of the 2. And then we click it over and up to go into reverse. That brings up an ultra clear backup camera system, even clearer than in the RSQ8, with trajectory lines off to the left, bird's eye view off to the right. And then, like the RSQ8, we've got a 3D projection, but unlike the RSQ8, we can use gestures, which works some of the time. You could just touch a zone instead. Also, unlike the RSQ8, we have a backup assist, which will take us out of the space in the same path that we chose to go into it. I'm just working the throttle and brake, and it's doing all the steering. Neat. Down and into drive next. We'll do a turning radius test. Bring up the camera system once more. Crank that wheel. And cut a nice tight turning circle. We do have rear wheel steering in this one, just like in the RSQ8, but it's a longer wheelbase by about 3.5 inches, so I don't know if that turnaround was quite as tight as in the RSQ8. Listening now to the turn signal. It's a classic BMW tap tap. And now for the world famous horn test. Oh. Huh. That's unique. It sounds like a little train horn. Moving on to the Powertrain, which pairs a 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 with an electric motor and a 25.7 kilowatt-hour battery pack for a combined 644 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque. That is routed through an 8-speed automatic gearbox to all 4 tires via a variable all-wheel drive system. Here in EV mode, it's a typical EV experience. There's plenty of power, it comes on instantly, and it creates for a smooth ride. In the min regen setting, there's not much regen braking happening. Let's try the max setting. So here I'll take my foot off the throttle, and really minimal slowing happens. The ride quality with these adaptive dampers and steel springs, unlike the RSQ8's air spring setup, is firm, but it also doesn't feel as settled as the RSQ8. A lot more undulation happening. And when you do go over bumps, some of that is transferred into the cabin. And unlike the RSQ8, which would occasionally have a crashing sound inside, this vehicle has like this booming resonance when it goes over bumps. The brake pedal is easy to modulate. And I do enjoy having a full EV mode with a good amount of range, so you could use this to get at least to work, maybe to and from work, without having to turn on the gas engine if you didn't want to. And it stays in EV mode up to speeds of 85 miles per hour, or if you hit the kick down on the throttle. Then the gas engine comes on, and it does make some noise. Now as a hybrid, as the speeds pick up, like in the RSQ8, the XM does become more of a composed riding SUV. But unlike the RSQ8, I'm getting more wind and road noise. The seats are more comfortable in this than the Audi. And I still feel mostly relaxed. It just is a louder ambiance, and so therefore feels a bit less luxurious. But the question yet remains whether the XM is fun to drive. So to find out, I'm going to hit my M Custom button once and twice to confirm, and then I'm going to put my foot down. Yep, there's a transformation for sure. For one, we hear from that twin-turbo V8, yet the noise itself seems a little artificial, does it not? It's not a bad noise necessarily, it just doesn't feel like natural V8 theater. The acceleration is significant. This, like the RSQ8, is quite hasty. The thumps on the upshift kind of go with the thumps of the chassis when it goes over a bump. The XM just, it hurtles down the motorway. And now if we wanted to try our hand at some manual shifting, I could click over the selector once more, pull on these much larger and much nicer actuating paddles. The shifts are quick. No quicker than the RSQ8 though. It'll let me go all the way to redline. I like the shift lights in the middle of the gauge cluster too. Ooh, and we should try M Road mode or M Sport mode now. That changes things up. And I like the new data up on the infotainment screen as well. Makes it feel a little cooler. And when the road gets twisty, the drive gets so much better. The steering is hefty, but builds resistance in a natural, talkative way. The brakes have tons of bite. The limited slip differential in the back doles out the power beautifully. However, while that rear wheel steering system does help it tuck in corners, there's more lean. The active anti-roll bars don't seem to be able to manage the 6,100 pounds of weight quite as well as the 5,500 pound RSQ8. Speed is not an issue though, not in a straight line. But what does the acceleration data have to say? I've got my race box set up once again. We're in the M dynamic mode for the traction. From here for launch, I just hold my foot on the brake, pin the throttle. Whoa, it's like a lurch there, letting go of the brake. Wow, and hit 60 in 3.83 seconds. Yeehaw! And that's about what I wanted to say during the start of that launch control. I felt like I was on a Bronco or a raging bull with a lurching beginning. So it was more theatrical, but less effective than the 3.3 second Audi RSQ8. And it doesn't stop there, because the top speed of the XM is either 155 miles per hour as standard, or you pay an additional $2,500 to raise that up to just 168. The fuel economy, though, that's a big win. So if you've got the battery charge in play, then you're looking at 46 combined MPGe. If that's fully drained, then it's still 19 combined MPGe. And now for the six-figure question. What do they cost? The 23 Audi RSQ8 starts around $127,000, and the one we have been driving is about $148,000. The XM, meanwhile, starts at $160,000, and this vehicle, as tested, is about $168,000. A $23,000 starting delta is not insignificant, but it's also not insurmountable for people shopping the high-end performance luxury SUV segment. And if they're not obsessed with getting a plug-in hybrid, because there aren't really that many to choose from right now, then they will consider vehicles like the RSQ8. So if it's your choice between the RSQ8 and an XM, what would I recommend? The exterior styling. I prefer the more subdued and yet cohesive look of the RSQ8 to the collage look of the XM. It's like they tried so many different designs that they don't all gel together that well. The interior, however, the RSQ8 is almost too conservative, whereas the XM has really nice colors, great materials, good technology, and though not quite as much passenger room as the RSQ8, it's still very, very close. The ride quality. Around town, I really do appreciate the all-electric drive mode of the XM, and if you're using this vehicle to commute, that is going to be a real asset. But when it comes to ride comfort and cabin quietness, the RSQ8 with its air springs does have an edge. It feels more composed, and it certainly feels like a quieter cabin. When you get on it, when you start having fun behind the wheel, both of these vehicles come alive. They're both incredibly quick in a straight line. I prefer the steering of the XM to the lightness and not quite as much communication of the RSQ8, but the RSQ8 controls its body motions better than this XM. So if I'm tallying everything up, yeah, this makes more power, yeah, it gets better fuel economy, but most other things I would wait and prefer in the RSQ8. And when you're saving $23,000 to start, it's gonna get my nod. Which would you guys choose, RSQ8 or BMW XM? Let me know in the comments. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and share the video. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell to get notified, and I'll see you next time.